profit from and for sustainability.
Does this worry you? If it does, I think it should, because of all the narrative we have around climate change, everything we see, whether it's a documentary or what we read in the media, all talks about climate change being the world's largest problem at present. The world is ending, all the marine life in the oceans are dying with our plastic straws. Everything around climate change is a narrative that is, for lack of a better word, suffocating. At Oceans and Us, we decided to take a slightly different approach. What we look at climate change as isn't necessarily a problem, but I would say more of an opportunity. If I might, probably the biggest opportunity that this current time has to offer. It's the one opportunity that is far beyond geography, race, politics, gender. It's the one time that people can come together as humanity to make a difference. Let me explain why I took this first step towards making a difference towards climate change. Beautiful, isn't it? This is where I come from. It's a small town in India. It used to be green, wonderful. It used to be a hill station. People would go there for good weather, absolutely clean breathing space, and just nature in general. This is what it looks like today. You can't drive past any given street without seeing garbage or waste stashed up on every single corner. Here's what we are doing. At Oceans and Us, we essentially are using Web3 to be able to create a circular economy around waste. And that could mean two steps. One could be cleaning up the oceans, rivers, and any water body for that instance from all the existing plastic waste that's there, choking marine life. And the second way could be by ensuring we restrict any kind of plastic from entering the water body. And we're trying to do this by creating profitability in this ecosystem, not as a CSR, not as a not-for-profit, but by creating a genuine shared economy ecosystem. In this basic example, if someone is disposing their daily waste by taking 60 seconds extra to segregate that waste, they can now be rewarded for that segregation, which in today's day is a terrible job. There's people actually going through your waste and separating a banana peel from a plastic bottle. And we want to make sure that job shouldn't be a job. And to be able to do that, you get rewarded through our ecosystem. The smart bins that we've developed will be seen very shortly all across Dubai and Abu Dhabi in community areas, residential areas, as well as commercial areas. The idea being, if you're walking by the street and you have a snack in your hand or you have a beverage in your hand, when you dispose that, if you actually take the effort to dispose it in one of our smart bins, you will earn rewards as well in the form of our tokens. This is how accessible they will be. You will be able to, through the app, locate all the smart bins across the city and find the nearest one to you at any given point. Speaking of waste management, which is effective in a place like Dubai, which is effective in most places across Europe and the US, when we hear the word waste management or recycling, this is the image that comes to mind for most of us. Unfortunately, that's what waste management looks like in most geographies. I'd say this for India, for Sri Lanka, for Bangladesh, for multiple places across Asia. Waste management in most of these places is usually a middle-aged individual picking up trash from the streets with their hands, putting it in a sack, carrying it to a nearby facility, and trying to sell it to make a daily living. Here's what we want to do. We want to Uberize waste picking. What that necessarily means is if you have the Uber app and you have a car and a license, you can become an Uber driver tomorrow and start making a living wage. We want to do the same thing for waste pickers. We want them to be able to sign up and get a kit sent to them, which is a proper sanitation kit, proper first aid measures, and a smart trolley to be able to collect this waste, for which they get rewarded in the form of our tokens. But again, these are waste pickers. Basic education is not provided, so getting them to understand the Web3 ecosystem is far-fetched. So we're going to give them a debit card, very straightforward, which they can use to actually make day-to-day purchases around food, shelter, clothing, medication. This is what we're going to make waste picking look like. It's going to be fairly straightforward. It's going to become a job that will be dignified. It would be something that is not looked down upon anymore. Here's how we're building the company. We're doing it with people across the world. People are giving us three things. Either an hour of what they do best. We've built our website, the technology, most of our prototypes with people who've given us their best hours. These are designers who give us 1 hour of designing, coders who've given us 1 hour of coding, and so on and so forth. The second option is $1 a month, where people commit to doing $1 a month. Again, this is not CSR, it's not a donation, it works as an investment towards the token. And it's very transparent on the system, where you can see exactly where your dollar has gone towards the removal and the cleanup. And the last one is the one life a month, which is where you support the livelihood of one cleaner by creating a mechanism where you pay for the trolley and the smart kit that is sent to them. If you'd like to know more, you can find information on how you can take the pledge and join us in this movement.
Thank you very much, Joel. And I hope that you all found that quite inspiring. Please come and sit down and we'll chat a little bit more about what else you're doing. Because you can see that not only have you got someone who's building something that's going to make a difference to a lot of very, very disadvantaged people in India, he's also not doing it as a charity. And I think that that's one of the most important parts of this conversation, because we tend to come from a history where if you're helping poor and disadvantaged, it's an act of charity. And what Joel's trying to do with this and his other project that we'll talk about is to create something that's sustainable, and you're actually enabling an economy to happen around the act of improving the environment. So Joel, thanks so much for that.
Thank you.
And I think I'd like to go on, because that was really interesting about the waste picking. But let's talk about Web3 and more generally how it can help solve the plastics problem, and in particular use the example of what you're doing with the oceans.
Absolutely. So why we're using Web3? For example, when you guys buy a bottle of water, you're not just paying for the ingredients, you're paying for everything. The packaging, the bottle, all of it. When it is recycled, we assume that our job is done. What we want to do is create transparency in everything. So we will have everything on the blockchain in terms of the brand that produced it, when it was produced, when it was consumed, where it was disposed, when it was recycled, and what it has actually then been reused for. So we close the loop on recycling and consumption. So the plastic waste that we remove and collect will essentially be used to build housing in Africa, sidewalks and park benches in India, meaningful change. And we are creating transparency and traceability in this impact using Web3.
No, thanks. So that's the transparency and traceability side. But one of the things that I think is interesting to me, and probably interesting to the audience, is how you can use that whole Web3 token economy to incentivize and reward people for doing things within the ecosystem that you want them to do.
Absolutely. So when you purchase a token, you essentially buy into the company and its revenue from multiple streams. So like we said earlier, whether it's a company or whether it's an individual, the token ecosystem works in two folds. One, it's utilized towards the cleanups. We at phase 2 are building fully autonomous unmanned boats which will be deployed in the oceans to detect and remove plastic waste. When this plastic waste is removed, we tap into an ecosystem of plastic credits, which is a whole other economy in itself, similar to carbon credits. These plastic credits are currently trading at about 100 to 150 US dollars per ton per credit. When we recycle that same ton, we get a second credit. So in addition to about roughly $250, 1 ton of plastic, we also sell the material to the waste management facilities and then sell the after product. So there's multiple revenue lines which is directly pegged into the token. In addition to this, you will get complete transparency on where the money of your token is being utilized, whether it's for the bins or whether it's for the job ecosystem.
So that's really interesting, and basically you're saying there's money and there's an economy around sustainability and recycling.
100%.
So the other question that I wanted to touch on, because you were talking about the waste pickers and the fact that you're not giving them, they don't have mobile phones, and even if they did, they probably couldn't manage a wallet and a token, and that giving them a credit card. Let's talk about that, because I think that's a fascinating approach, because this is one of the big barriers to blockchain Web3, is it's not that easy for a user experience. So tell us about this.
Absolutely. So we're working with respective local governments and reputed financial institution where a debit card will be provided to these waste pickers, which is directly linked with their national ID, biometrics, etc. So we're going to simplify it for the average person to be able to show up to a nearby facility like a booth, sign up with their basic information and receive a debit card. And everything, whether it's the trolley or the kit, is being backed by theft insurance as well. It's traceable on the blockchain. It's got a GPS tracking system. So everything is completely monitored. And we are able to give these people a fair daily wage, which after research shows us that they can actually put 3 meals on the table for their family, can pay for shelter and clothing. And this is something which is a new economy that we can create.
And this is just so important, and for all of you doing amazing tech innovations, just remember, well over 1/3 of the world's population don't have smartphones. So your smartphone idea is not going to work in the slums of Mumbai. So please be thinking about solutions like this, mobile-enabled solutions on 3G, and also voice activation, because a lot of people are illiterate, and even if they had a smartphone, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of certain geographies, we've even had local municipalities, governments, as well as corporates who've taken a step forward to say, we would like to sponsor smartphones, 1 phone per family. So they are able to find this. And the next phase of our smart bins will be Wi-Fi enabled. So they don't need to get or pay for internet. They can find a local smart bin and use that as a Wi-Fi system to be able to sign up and proceed with the app.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, and I want to emphasize that, is everyone doesn't just have access to Wi-Fi and data, and everyone doesn't actually have access to energy, and that's why things like solar energy becomes so important.
Absolutely.
So let's go on. We've got a little bit of time left. So we've had a few panels that have been talking about NFTs today, mainly from the regulatory side. But I know that you're wanting to use NFTs in your project. Can you tell us how you're using them? Are there any drunk monkeys?
Not at all. Not at all. We're doing something completely different. We are launching 365 NFTs, which represent 1 day of the year. When's your birthday, Jane?
What?
When's your birthday?
9th of May.
9th of May. So you could own 9th of May as your NFT, which would essentially represent the cleanup of the 9th of May. You would be sent a memento, which would have the exact coordinates of the cleanup that day, the exact number of people you impacted by creating a daily income for them, as well as the total amount of plastic that was removed that day. So that's what the NFT represents. We're bringing together 365 unique artists from across the world to be able to design one day as an NFT.
That's pretty powerful, isn't it? So everyone, remember your birthdays. Go and ask Joel how you claim the NFT for your birthday, and you can see what actually happens on your birthday. I love that idea.
Absolutely.
And I think
you.
that's just the imaginative ways that people are starting to use technology to be able to solve some of these challenges that we have in the world, particularly around environment. So let me ask you, Joel, in relation to your project, how can people get involved? If you think cleaning the oceans or supporting the waste pickers in India in a sustainable manner is something you want to get involved in, how can people get involved?
So we want to make it very simple. You know, I always trace it back to my mum. My mum doesn't understand anything about Web3 or technology or any of this, in its detail. But she handles home waste every single day. So if she spends 60 seconds to segregate it, we want to incentivize her. If someone wants to participate by being a little more conscious about where they dispose their plastic into a smart bin, we want to incentivize them. So my ask to all of you is, one, if you want to participate by having ownership in the token, then absolutely. But if not, you can also always be a conscious consumer and earn these tokens by just basically ensuring that all your plastic is disposed in one of our smart bins, which will be deployed extensively over the next 3 months. And lastly, we're building the company with the people. So there's a lot of initiatives which ask you to run 10K for a cause or walk 5K for something. We don't want you to do any of that. Give us an hour a month of what you do best. If you're good at designing, give us an hour of your design work. If you're good at finance, give us an hour of your finance skill set. And you will be rewarded in tokens, and we will build this company with the people for the planet.
Thank you. And look, that's a really powerful example about how one individual entrepreneur is using technology to be able to address some of the sustainability problems in the world. But there are many, many other examples. So the message that I want you to take away is, remember I said 70% of the Sustainable Development Goals can be accelerated or enabled by tech. And if you've got an idea, you might be building a game. That's fantastic. But you could also build a gamified experience that incentivizes people to do something positive for the environment. There's also another colleague of ours who's building a DAO for climate action. So especially you guys working, and ladies working in technology, think about what you're already building and how maybe that can be deployed in a way that can actually make our world better, our planet healthier, our environment safer for our children. So for all of you who've been through these sessions on tech for sustainability, thank you to Olga and AIBC for letting us spend 2 hours talking to you about this really important subject. If you're in the UAE, come and participate in the Tech for Sustainability ecosystem. If you're a tech designer, think about how the tech you've got can be used for sustainability. And if you're just at home, at least separate your own waste so we can all do something. So thank you for joining me with all of these fabulous speakers.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for sharing the session, and thank you, Olga.